There are interviews that seem to vanish from the historical record. Files go missing, witnesses decline to talk, and those with memories choose silence, particularly when the matter touches the line between science and what some call the supernatural. The name Stephen Hawking is universally recognized. A brilliant physicist, a profound thinker, a man who transcended not only his physical constraints, but also the frontiers of human understanding. He lectured on black holes, on the universe's origins, on the essence of time. Yet there was one subject he nearly always sidestepped in public appearances: the afterlife. In spring 2025, a team of researchers examining digitized records from restricted university collections stumbled upon a peculiar recording within Cambridge University's database. Hidden among materials barred from public view was an audio file. Its file name was a meaningless string of numbers and letters, but the metadata bore the words "Hawking Consciousness Beyond." Initially, it was dismissed as fabrication or forgery, but voice analysis confirmed the speaker was indeed Stephen Hawking. Furthermore, the recording dated to the early 2000s, precisely when the scientist had virtually stopped granting interviews. The file contained a dialogue between Hawking and an unidentified interviewer. The other person's identity remained untraceable. Their voice had been distorted or digitally altered. The opening 10 minutes covered familiar territory: the genesis of time, the mechanics of gravity. Then the interviewer posed a question that shifted the entire conversation. "Professor, if information within a black hole is not destroyed, might consciousness also endure after the body ceases to exist?" Silence followed. The recording captures Hawking's faint, labored breathing. Then he spoke. "This is a question I have explored far more deeply than I have ever acknowledged publicly." Then followed a monologue that official science had long deemed impossible. If information cannot be destroyed, this applies not only to physical objects but also to cognitive patterns, memory, perception, and experience. What religions refer to as the soul may not be a distinct entity, but rather an information structure, one that follows the laws of conservation. The interviewer sought clarification. "Are you suggesting that consciousness can persist?" Hawking's reply was surprisingly definitive. In a certain form, yes, though not in the manner traditional religions envision. He explained that he had developed a hypothesis in which consciousness is not a localized brain function, but quantum information distributed throughout space and time. When the body stops functioning, the information does not vanish. It shifts into a different state. In this sense, death is not an ending, but a transformation. These words stood in stark contrast to many of his public declarations. In official interviews, Hawking frequently stated that nothing exists after death. Yet as it emerged in private discussions, he entertained an entirely different possibility. And here is where things become strangest of all. When researchers examined the properties of the audio file, they detected something unusual. The recording contained faint sounds resembling digital markers or concealed codes. Audio forensic experts theorized that the file had been modified or protected to hide certain portions. Nevertheless, the most crucial content remained intact. In the interview, Hawking went on, "In recent years, I consulted with a group of physicists and neurobiologists working on what we tentatively named the Cognitive Trace Program. The objective was straightforward: to determine whether consciousness could leave measurable traces following brain death." He noted that specialized neurointerfaces and laser spectroscopy were employed for this purpose. These technologies were officially used solely for memory research. However, Hawking explained that several experiments produced unexpected outcomes. In 2 instances, we detected anomalies. Following the deaths of the patients, we observed bursts of quantum activity in the laboratory that standard models of tissue decomposition could not account for. The interviewer inquired, "Are you describing something like a quantum echo?" Yes, memories, emotions, perhaps even fragments of personality remain preserved within the field, not in the conventional sense, but as patterns that could interact with their surroundings. This concept echoed Roger Penrose's theories regarding quantum consciousness. Yet Hawking ventured further. He proposed a hypothesis suggesting that black holes in human consciousness follow similar principles. A black hole does not eliminate information, it transforms it. I reached the conclusion that consciousness follows a comparable path. It does not vanish. It alters its form of existence. A lengthy silence followed in the recording. The interviewer asked softly, "Is this what the soul is?" Hawking's voice dropped to nearly a whisper. "If you strip away religious interpretations, yes, it is an informational soul. It does not belong exclusively to the body. It is part of quantum reality." At this moment in the audio file, interference and distortions emerged as though someone was attempting to disrupt the recording. The researchers tried to recover the missing segments through spectral analysis. Some data were successfully restored. In the final minutes, Hawking discussed how such conclusions were too dangerous to publish. If the existence of a cognitive trace after death is verified, it will transform everything. Philosophy, science, religion, politics. Some will employ it for good, others for control, he added. This is why I chose not to release this data. Perhaps humanity is not yet prepared. The file concluded with an abrupt click, indicating the recording had stopped. But the most enigmatic part was still to come. Upon examining the file's metadata, the research team uncovered an additional detail. The description held coordinates that had been encoded. At first glance, these appeared to be a meaningless string of numbers, but when plotted on a mapping system, they indicated a laboratory complex outside Geneva. This facility was one of the experimental sites connected to CERN. Its official purpose was magnetic systems testing, yet independent sources maintained that during the early 2000s, a secretive group of scientists had worked there under Dr. Mark Euler, a physicist who had previously collaborated with Hawking. The researchers resolved to investigate CERN's archives. Following months of formal requests and legal proceedings, they obtained limited access to declassified materials. Among these were reports labeled Cognitive Echo Project from 2002 and 2003. One report noted, during experiment number 14, anomalous quantum radiation was detected at the moment of the subject's clinical passing. The radiation persisted for 4 minutes following the documented cessation of cardiac and brain function. A second document contained a statement that startled even the skeptics. The likelihood of spontaneous signal generation under laboratory conditions is below 1/1,000,000%. The observed phenomenon aligns with the cognitive trace hypothesis. This served as an indirect suggestion that Hawking had not merely theorized about the soul's possible existence. He and his colleagues had already witnessed phenomena that might represent consciousness persisting after passing. Yet why had this information never reached the public? The explanation proved disturbingly straightforward. Dr. Mark Euler vanished in 2004. His whereabouts remained unknown. Shortly afterward, every member of the Cognitive Echo Project team was either terminated or transferred elsewhere. All project documentation was classified. CERN's official records contained no references to the project beyond 2003. Some members of the research team engaged in decrypting Hawking's interview started receiving anonymous warnings urging them to abandon the investigation. One audio forensics specialist abruptly refused to continue his work and departed the country. Nevertheless, a portion of the team resolved to press forward, convinced that the information Hawking had embedded in the audio file was far too significant to be buried once more. In the meantime, examination of the original file uncovered a concealed digital message composed of simple words. Consciousness is not a function, it is a path. These words proved to be the key to their next breakthrough. Upon decrypting the hidden message, the team understood that Hawking had not simply been conveying a scientific hypothesis. He had left behind an indication of a certain process, a pathway that consciousness follows after physical death. One researcher, Dr. Louis Harding, a quantum informatics specialist, put forward a theory. If consciousness truly was an informational structure, as Hawking had suggested, then after death it might transition into what is known as a quantum memory field, a hypothetical state where personality patterns do not vanish, but persist as waves, potentially even interacting with one another. Harding drew upon not only Penrose's work, but also John Wheeler's early theories proposing that the universe might possess the capacity to retain information. If accurate, consciousness does not simply endure, it may reincarnate. The team began searching for correlations between data from CERN's experimental archives and documented cases of unusual memories reported by individuals. They consulted the database at the University of Virginia's Division of Perceptual Studies, where testimonies of children recalling past lives had been gathered for over 50 years. The coincidences proved disturbing. In 13 instances, children recounted events connected to locations and people that had already been documented in the Cognitive Echo projects and comparable research. One 6-year-old boy from Texas provided detailed descriptions of experiments using magnetic traps at the Geneva laboratory, despite his family having no ties to science or Europe. A California girl remembered number sequences matching test codes from the Cognitive Echo project. Such data could not simply be dismissed as coincidence. Dr. Harding determined that if consciousness information truly endures, it could be received by new hosts, children whose neural networks harmonize with the quantum imprints of former consciousness. This accounted for both spontaneous memory cases and the phenomena known as return souls. Yet one question persisted without answer. Why did certain consciousnesses endure and return while others disappeared? The answer emerged once more from concealed files. In the final portion of the audio recording, long thought to be damaged, a brief passage was retrieved. Not all patterns are compatible. Only those carrying development persist. The rest are eliminated. This is consciousness undergoing natural selection. Hawking was doing more than acknowledging the soul's existence. He was suggesting that its rebirth process followed the laws governing information evolution. This represented the scientific version of reincarnation, and this revelation transformed everything. Following the research group's release of preliminary findings, criticism surged within select scientific circles. Official spokespersons from Cambridge University and CERN declared such hypotheses beyond the scope of testable science. Certain physicists and psychologists characterized the work of Harding's team as reckless speculation. Nevertheless, some within academia endorsed the research. Professor Karen Blake, a neurophysiology specialist from Princeton, declared, "Modern science is too fearful of questions that challenge established dogmas. Yet if we disregard phenomena that don't conform to our models, we restrict our own progress." As the debates went on, the researchers stumbled upon a fresh lead. Within CERN's archives, there existed a report labeled Class C. Since this was the lowest tier of secrecy, obtaining access proved relatively simple. The report detailed an experiment carried out in 2002 involving individuals with extraordinary cognitive abilities. These subjects didn't simply have outstanding memory or intelligence. They demonstrated instances of spontaneous recollections concerning events to which they could have had no possible link. The document included the statement, "A group of carriers of cognitive patterns showing signs of memory transfer with the probability of random coincidence below 1 million. Yet the most astonishing element was that the report referenced the term, the chosen 8. This resonated with the phrase from Hawking's audio recording, "Consciousness is a path. Only compatible patterns endure." Harding and his colleagues came to understand that this might be alluding to a group of individuals whose consciousnesses were not merely preserved, but deliberately directed to fulfill a particular mission in the future. The theory appeared far-fetched, but the events that followed compelled a reassessment of their doubts. Throughout a 2-year period, the team documented a rise in cases of so-called reincarnation memory among children across the globe. Such occurrences were particularly common in the United States, the United Kingdom, Germany, and Japan. Many of these children exhibited not only memories but also extraordinary talents in mathematics, music, and engineering. Some of them mentioned tasks they were meant to carry out, though they couldn't articulate what those tasks involved. Dr. Harding reached out to the Division of Perceptual Studies at the University of Virginia. Collaborative research showed that most of these children had been born during times marked by major social and technological shifts. Just as Hawking had anticipated, the return of consciousnesses was not random. They formed part of an evolutionary progression, and the discoveries did not stop there. In the meantime, Harding's team kept gathering data. The number of verified cases involving children with reincarnation memories steadily increased. Those born during eras of social and technological transformation exhibited unusual memories and abilities with particular frequency. These children did more than simply remember previous lives. Many displayed exceptional talents in mathematics, music, engineering, and even scientific concepts that no one in their families had ever mentioned. Some spoke of missions or purposes they felt compelled to fulfill. though they themselves did not always grasp what this truly meant. Harding and his colleagues determined that consciousnesses did not return at random. This was a directed evolutionary process. Before long, the term compatible consciousnesses emerged with increasing regularity in their research. Those who, through some unknown mechanism, retained memories and abilities from former lives in order to carry out tasks in the present. But the most startling development came with the arrival of an anonymous source. One day, Harding received an encrypted message containing the words, "Hawking knew more than you think. This is not the end. This is the beginning." Attached was a file labeled Protocol of the Evolution of Consciousness. Within it lay a document describing a theory Hawking had developed alongside a small circle of physicists, neurobiologists, and philosophers. The document declared, "Consciousness is not a product of the brain, but a fundamental structure of reality. Black holes in consciousness follow the same laws of information preservation. The soul is an informational pattern that evolves through the experience of living and passing. Only those consciousnesses contributing to progress endure. The rest fade away. In times of upheaval, aligned consciousnesses return to guide humanity forward." At the document's conclusion appeared Hawking's signature alongside his words, "The fear of death is the fear of losing form, but information never vanishes. We do not perish, we evolve." These disclosures clarified much. Episodes of spontaneous recall, children's inexplicable talents, and the synchronized emergence of history-altering figures. Yet they also suggested potential dangers. Mastery over such knowledge could become a weapon. Harding's team chose transparency over secrecy. Their discoveries soon appeared in public forums. The research sparked an enormous global response. Millions began questioning their own recollections, anxieties, and experiences of déjà vu. For many, this represented not merely a scientific theory, but an entirely new worldview. And as Hawking foresaw, this marked only the start. If this narrative sparked reflection, show your support with a like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. Further revelations await that may transform our comprehension of existence, mortality, and fate. Because the chronicle of the soul is the chronicle of all humankind, and it goes on,